Does suffering disprove God? This question has been around in one form or another for 2,000 years. If God is loving, and if God is all-powerful, then why is there suffering in the world? It's a fair question. I think I've heard at least 4 different answers to that question. One is the answer of the atheist. The atheist says that's easy. There's no God. It is an easy answer. Easy answers are often wrong, and this one certainly is. There's a reason that less than 2% of the world's population claims to be an atheist. The majority position, overwhelmingly, is that there is a God. And that's not the answer to this question. That would be an interesting study one day, to study the evidences for the existence of God. But let's look at the second possibility. If God is loving and all-powerful, why is there suffering in the world? The religion that calls itself Christian Science says that's easy. There is no suffering. Christian Science believes that the physical world doesn't really exist, that there is no such thing as a human body, and therefore there can't be a human body with broken bones, or a human body with disease, or a human body that dies. They believe the only thing that exists is spirit, and that everything else is an illusion. And so your headache, or your cancer, or your broken bone is not really real. But we know they are. There is a reason that there are fewer Christian scientists than atheists in the world. Some say that the Christian answer to the question is, if we had faith, we wouldn't suffer. That suffering is an evidence of our lack of faith in God, our faith failure. Really? Jesus suffered. The martyrs suffered, heroes of the faith to all of us. Jesus told a parable one time. A parable about 2 houses that went through a storm. One house built on rock, one house built on sand. We focus on the conclusion of that parable and we think about the fact that one house stood the storm and the other didn't. But think about the fact that both houses went through it. Christians don't avoid suffering, no matter what their level of faith. In fact, often, as we see in the martyrs, it's their abundance of faith that produces their suffering. It's the reason that they suffer. That answer is given, I'm sure, in good faith. That answer doesn't work either. There is another answer, and this one does work. It says suffering wasn't in God's plan from the beginning. Suffering entered this world as a consequence of sin. And God can and will do something about it. He is doing something now. God is with us in our suffering. He shares it. God knows what suffering is. He saw His Son suffer. God builds our faith through suffering. Suffering which is part of being in a fallen world, but suffering which God redeems because of His love for us. As we were promised in Romans 8:28, He is able to bring good out of bad situations. The ultimate answer, of course, is that in heaven, there will be no suffering. We're not there yet. Corrie ten Boom says that we're like people looking at a tapestry on the wrong side of the weaving. We see the knots, we see the tangled threads, and it doesn't seem to make sense to us. But if we could see the other side, it would be a beautiful work of God's grace in our lives. And one day, we'll see the other side. Because God is preparing a place for us where there are no dialysis machines, there are no children's cancer wards, there are no Braille books, because they're not needed. It's just that we're not home yet.